One of the Dolphins' primary superpowers in the early years of Mike McDaniel's tenure is missing in action. Where has it gone? We explore that here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Here on the Locked On Network, special thank you to each and every one of you who have helped make the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in the world. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today on the show, we had a roster move that went kaboom for the Dolphins over the weekend. A little bit of a backfire, potentially. We have a lesson from the Patriots that I want to apply because I feel a lot of angst that the Patriots are having a successful season. And then I want to start with this latest revelation, if you will. Not really. It will not surprise you if you watch the Dolphins offense play the last 4 years. That the Dolphins, once upon a time under Mike McDaniel, were one of the more prolific and dangerous long and late down offenses in the league. Where it didn't matter if it was 3rd and 11, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. Dolphins offense had as good of a chance as anybody to convert those long and late downs because of the speed that they had on the field and the shells that they would get as a result. And they could work further down the field faster than any other passing offense because Tua Tagovailoa had a quick trigger, and you had Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill as a super size or super speed combo of wide receivers. Right? That was in 22 and 23. That was part of what made the Dolphins so dangerous. We've seen a downturn of all downturns as it pertains to this element of the offense. And I'm only going to filter the Tua numbers, right? Because in 22, there's numbers without Tua Tagovailoa as the quarterback for, 6 games, really? 23, we played with Tua the full season. 24, we missed 5 games, 5.5 games. I'm going to present just Tua Tagovailoa's splits. So there's no question about backup quarterbacks in the scheme and this and that. There's been a drop-off in Tua and his production on 3rd and longs that's become very pronounced. In 22 and 23 combined, Tagovailoa had the 4th best passer rating in the NFL amongst qualifying quarterbacks on 3rd and 4th down and 8 yards or longer to go. So 4th best. 65% completion percentage. Passer rating was close to 95. 5th in the NFL in yards per attempt, 8.2, and 6th in the NFL in first downs, despite missing a third of the 2022 season. They were very dangerous. The last 2 seasons, since the start of 2024, Tua ranks 29th out of 33 qualifying quarterbacks with at least 50 pass attempts on 3rd and 4th down and 8 or more yards to go. His passer rating is 64.3, which is nearly 30 full points lower than what it was in 22 and 23 combined. He's thrown 7 interceptions on 3rd and 4th down and 8+ since the start of the 2024 season. That's tied for the most in the NFL with Geno Smith. And if you've watched the Dolphins offense, they get in the red zone and they take a holding penalty or they get backed up against the sticks. And it's sort of feel like, okay, we're going to predictably going to run a screen to try to get some of it back. And then if we can't get that, then we're either going to run the ball or we're going to run another screen, right? It's been very low, I don't want to say effort, but like they become kind of predictable and it's just don't turn the ball over. So to formally get these numbers has been eye-opening. And that's the bad news for the latest kind of Earlier this season, we talked about Tua and his passing from 10 to 19 yards, particularly in the middle of the field, and how that was such a strength of his in 22 and 23, but 24 and 25, it hasn't really been the same. There's been some accuracy regression there. Some of that's to his fault. Some of that's not to his fault, right? Some of that's, the pass catchers that the Dolphins hadn't had on the field. Some of that's the offensive line and their ability to protect, although they held for Tua to pass for an average of 2.82 seconds in this last game against New Orleans, right? Like they certainly had the ability to hold up against New Orleans in pass protection. But when you look at the long and late passing, this is perhaps the area of the offense that is most missing Tyreek Hill. Because I just went through 22 and 23 and 24 and 25 passer splits. And it's about a 30-point drop-off. It's 33% lower. But when you look at it through the lens of Tyreek Hill, it kind of gives you a different sense of what's been missing. So, for example, in the Dolphins' first 3 seasons under Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa only attempted 19 passes on third and long and late, third or fourth and long, in which Tyreek Hill was not on the field. And in 2022, on 2 attempts, he had a 118 passer rating, but it was 2 attempts. In 2023, without Tyreek Hill, it was a 110 passer rating on 11 attempts. 2024 was a 41.7 passer rating with 6 attempts. That was really amplified, in my opinion, by the offensive line issues, the interior offensive line issues that the Dolphins had last year at both guard spots, which were catastrophically bad. But with Tyreek Hill, including 2025, Tua on long and late downs with Tyreek Hill in 2022 is a 97 pass rating, 46 attempts. 2023 with Tyreek Hill, 87.3 pass rating, 66 attempts. 2024 with Tyreek Hill, 97.1 on 38 attempts. 2025 with Tyreek Hill on 15 attempts, 94.7. You had 4 straight years of between 87 and 97 passer rating, including this year with Tyreek. This is a notch in the belt for Tyreek Hill. And while you've seen this Dolphins offense evolve out of necessity without Tyreek Hill and do a lot of things that I think are good and healthy and were necessary for the life that is inevitably coming after Tyreek Hill, you made the decision to play this year with Tyreek Hill, didn't transition away, therefore did not have an alternative on the roster to play that role for speed and spacing. And on 25 attempts without Tyreek Hill this year, you have a passer rating of 45.3 on long and late downs without Tyreek Hill on the field. So since the start of 2024, your passer rating is 43 on 31 attempts without Tyreek Hill. So there's some give and some take here, right? Where I find some solace for Tua Tagovailoa, there's been regression physically. There's been accuracy regression. There's been decision-making regression. I think everybody agrees it's not a long-term solution anymore at this stage. But if the Dolphins have Tagovailoa on the roster next year because the salary demands guarantee it, and whether it's a rookie or somebody else to compete with him for the starting job, make an effort to replace Tyreek Hill with someone of a complementary skill set, not necessarily a marquee investment. I'm saying you have to invest your first round pick or spend $30 million on another receiver, because that's the give and take. When you pay Tyreek Hill $30 million, Tyreek Hill is going to be on the field because he's getting paid $30 million. So you're not in a position to play 22 and 13 personnel and load up on heavy and take an extra offensive tackle and put him out there, because you're paying Jalen Waddle $28 million a season average on his new money deal, and you're paying Tyreek Hill 30. Those guys got to be out there, which means by and large, you're going to play 2 wide receiver sets at a minimum more often than not, which means this offensive evolution with 13 and 22 and heavy and 6 offensive linemen, it's probably not happening if Tyreek Hill's still here. So maybe you're better on long and late downs, But what are you on early downs? Right? It's the diminishing returns for your entire offense to have that much invested in those two players that dictates personnel to such an extreme degree that you maybe can't do the things that are better for you on neutral downs. So the solution here is, in my opinion, find besides, you're reassessing your entire offense, you're reassessing your coaching staff, you're reassessing the quarterback position and what your pivots look like and exit roads off the contract and this, that, the other thing. And I think the future's not with the group that's here at the quarterback position. That's my opinion. But the solution for 2026 is if this nucleus is back, if Mike McDaniel keeps the team winning enough and he runs it back, and Tua is here because of his contract status, and he's probably going to be best suited to start the season as the starting quarterback, and then whoever comes in, whether that's a veteran or a rookie, when the time comes, right? But you can find a cost-effective alternative as a receiver with speed to help dictate spacing that can allow you to do some of the same things that Miami does on long and late downs with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but that player not making $30 million makes it easier for you to get to him 1st and 10 and say, yeah, we're going to load up and go heavy. So I think there's a roster construction and balance issue here that's manifested in when you lose Hill, you get healthier with your early down stuff, but you get unhealthier because you don't have an alternative to fill the role that helps you dictate coverage shells. And without that, your windows are smaller. Your quarterback has to be able to anticipate faster. Your quarterback has to be able to throw with more velocity and drive and hit more tight window throws because you can shell over top of one receiver, but the rest of the coverage shell is warped because they're not stressed. That evolution needs to happen, regardless of what else happens from a personnel standpoint. But I thought it was interesting to kind of get into, hey, this superpower, where's it gone? What is the role that Tyreek Hill has had in it? And what can you do to have a better answer for next year, no matter what else does or doesn't change, while simultaneously not compromising the growth that the offense has shown if you run back this nucleus and coaching staff. So that's my thoughts on long and late downs. Let me know what you think in the comments if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube. We have a lot of other things to get into, including a lesson from New England. We're getting into that next here at Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's where making live betting with FanDuel can be an exciting addition to your Sundays. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, or the defense tightens up. FanDuel lets you jump in on the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that updates as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more to keep yourself locked in on each and every snap. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long with FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. If you are thinking about getting down to the next game over at Hard Rock, you've probably experienced this one or two times before. You drop $100 on parking at Hard Rock Stadium. You battle the traffic to get in, then you sit in your car and wait for an hour to leave when the game wraps up. What if I told you there was a better way? Found this new app that I think could help you out. Dibs is a platform that connects you with verified homeowners and businesses near the stadium who rent out their driveways and lots on game day. We're talking about spots as low as $25. It's about 80% cheaper than stadium parking. You'll get in and out way faster. Every host is verified and rated, so you know exactly what you're getting. Dibs is available for games and events at Hard Rock Stadium and is expanding across the state of Florida. Call Dibs on your spot today. Use code LOCKEDON20 for 20% off your first booking. Had some thoughts about the Patriots. Obviously secured their 11th win of the season against the New York Giants. They have a 2.5, technically 3-game lead on the Buffalo Bills. We're into December. The Patriots could clinch the division. The Patriots have a bye this week, and then they could clinch the AFC East if they beat the Bills in a head-to-head coming out of the bye, because that would move them to 12 wins and drop the Bills to 5 losses, which means the best they could do is tie, and the Patriots would have won both head-to-head games. So we're on the doorstep of the Patriots winning the AFC East. And a lot of Dolphins fans, from what I have found, they feel some type of way about it. And on one hand, like, I get it, right? Patriots have had their time in the sun. They had an amazing dynasty run with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. They had some down years, and they've quickly bounced back. There's really 2 thoughts that I have about this as it pertains to the Dolphins. The first is the hand-wringing that I see often about the Patriots being in front of the Dolphins again. It's life in the NFL, guys. It's teams are bad, and they load up on assets, and they have more spending power, and they spend more, and then they hit a peak, and then the players become too expensive, so they start to lose some players. Maybe a guy retires, and then your draft picks are higher because you're winning more, higher as in later because you're winning more, and then your talent starts to drop off, and then you need to start the cycle back over again, right? It's the circle of life in the NFL. And the Dolphins fans are uniquely not adjusted to the circle of life in the NFL because they are on the heels of a 2-decade run of the longest running dynasty in the history of the league that has bred an expectation that New England just lives here. Well, no, it was Buffalo, and Buffalo just lives here, right? What the Bills are experiencing right now as a team that has major defensive deficiencies, as a team that does not have the offensive weaponry with consistency that they need to dictate terms and put true conflict, and a lot's riding on the quarterback, and the quarterback more often than not can carry them. And that's the difference we're seeing in Miami is the Dolphins went through the same thing, although they rapidly expedited their own life cycle by being so crazily, recklessly aggressive with draft picks and second contracts and tripling down on those same contracts, which is why the GM's no longer here, right? Let's be honest. He's been dismissed for a reason. And it's because of how short your window was. You picked the wrong coach at the beginning who was not on the same page as far as what the build was going to look like. So then the coach leaves and you pick a new head coach and he comes in and he's a first-year coach and the GM has no backbone on what to say yes or no to. It's just whatever you want to do. And of course, the first-time head coach is going to get a chance to get Tyreek Hill for 4 or 5 draft picks and get Bradley Chubb for 3 draft picks. And he's going to say, yeah, let's do it. We got a lot of talent. And they pour into it. And they do that for 2 more years, and then their circle of life went very quickly. The Patriots were bad for 4 seasons. Even the year that they made the playoffs as a wildcard team and Mac Jones' rookie season, that was not a good football team. Right? That's the circle of life in the NFL. So to say, oh, the Patriots are in front of the Dolphins again, look at effectively the history of any other division in football. That's not the East, because the East has been uniquely dominated by 2 chapters of strong play, right? Josh Allen was head and shoulders the best quarterback in the NFL with the rest of the young nucleus of their first foundation in place. And Josh has kind of carried it as a certain baseline while the rest of it's been good. And yeah, like you got the Chiefs that won 9 straight times in that division. That's like the second. There's always been like 5 times in NFL history a team has won the division more than 5 times consecutively. The Bills entered into that window. The Patriots were in that window. The Chiefs of now are in that window. That's was 3 active or 1 streak taking over for another streak in the history of football in which there's been that much constant at the top of a division. So the Patriots are going to be a good football team for a while. They've got assets. They have a young quarterback that looks really promising. They have talent. Do I expect them to be Tom Brady? No, I don't. They might win the AFC this year just because the conference is wide open. And the cruel irony for Miami is the first year they really fall off after having been aggressively in it to try to build up a team is the year that it opens up. But I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself over it. I don't think you should either. Because at least there's been a change at general manager. And that's the other part of the lesson. The Patriots very easily could have said, well, we have Gerard Mayo. I like Gerard Mayo as Robert Kraft. We're going to stay the course. They were not afraid to make a change, to find an obvious upgrade. And that is what Stephen Ross needs to keep in the back of his mind as we continue. Whether that was the Chiefs ambitiously and opportunistically trading up to draft Patrick Mahomes while they had a stable quarterback on a second contract in Alex Smith. Whether that was the Baltimore Ravens with Joe Flacco trading back up into the first round to draft Lamar Jackson. Whether that was the New England Patriots having Gerard Mayo and saying, you know what, Mike Vrabel's available, had a lot of success in Tennessee, wants to be here, we need to make a change. And they did. And it worked for them. And that's what the Dolphins need to be prepared for at any juncture. And I'm not saying it's at quarterback. I'm not saying it's a head coach. Wherever it is, if you get an opportunity to get a very well-established talent, or if you think that this is too good to be true, go for it. Fortune favors the bold. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. You live with the implications. You hope you win enough to get another swing of the bat. New England deserves credit for not being afraid to take the bat off their shoulder and swing on Mike Vrabel, because it has allowed them to make this leap from a talented team or a young team that you overpaid for some talent because you paid the bad team tax, and they did pay the bad team tax in free agency, but they had all the cap space in the world to be able to do it. At the end of the day, they swung the bat. Well, they didn't swing the bat recklessly. They did so responsibly. Miami, whatever opportunities you have, whether that's a GM, quarterback, head coach, whatever, this offseason, swing the bat. Because I don't think this roster is so depleted that you can't have a competitive window that cycles back up, because it's going to get worse before it gets better for the Buffalo Bills, because they're going to be picking in the mid-20s again. They are going to continue to have, they are being held together by Jordan Poyer on the back end right now, because he's the guy that's breathing communication in the secondary. Trey White is a corner for them who's an essential piece. They don't have wide receivers where they were knocking on the door for Jalen Waddle, that they don't want to give up the draft picks. And if they do give up the draft picks, then they're going to have to restructure all their contracts to fit into the big contract on their books. Now, Josh Allen's going to carry them. They're going to have a certain competitive floor no matter what. But they're going to be there to be had and to get after a little bit. The Jets are going to have their say in this, but it's going to be probably several years, because they made their roster worse to get more assets that have more unknown. You got to make the best of the assets that you have, but GMs, head coaches, quarterbacks, they set a certain baseline of your team. And those are the areas where the Dolphins need to fight complacency. Patriots, the latest example of that. The Dolphins had a roster move that kind of backfired on them a little bit. We're going to talk about that to close today's show. That's next here at Locked on Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personable, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles, whether that's grandparents, your parents, newlyweds, your friends, with all your trips and memories. You can upload endless photos and pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app. It's a holiday gift that actually gets used, not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions do apply. So we've talked about long and late downs and Tua's regression in this regard. And I think some of this is Tua's physical regression and the technical regression of the footwork that you feel with the accuracy. But I think some of this is compounded by you chose to run it back with Tyreek Hill, and then you were forced to make changes. And while that made the rest of your offense more balanced, that individual down and distance scenario, you don't have enough tools to dictate coverage shells in ways that allow your quarterback to have a consistent pathway to executing plays at a high level. We talked about the lesson from New England, which is take the bat off your shoulder. Do not be afraid, but be opportunistic. Don't overinvest. Whether that was the Packers, right? Packers have a very status quo way of doing things. They traded for Micah Parsons because it's too good to be true to trade for Micah Parsons. We had Gerard Mayo. We liked Gerard Mayo, but Mike Vrabel's available. We're going to make change. I got Joe Flacco, but Lamar Jackson's there late in the first round. Let's go get that guy. Packers, another good example, right? They have Aaron Rodgers. He ended up playing like 3 more years in Green Bay, but, Jordan Love's there in the 20s. Too good for us to be true with our evaluation. Let's go do it. Plenty of examples of that. The Dolphins need to do that, but you should not be deterred that the Patriots are in front of the Dolphins. The Patriots were bad for 4 years. Their life cycle dictates, and it made it inevitable that they were going to start to ramp up once they got a few pieces in place. The Dolphins are on a cycle down, but they're also at a point where they, in theory, could start to build from here. This could be the worst the Dolphins are for the next 5 years. Because next year you're going to have another young influx and more draft capital to work with. You're going to hit some of those picks. You're going to miss some of those picks. After this upcoming season in 2026, your books are going to be dramatically more clear. You're going to have spending power. You're going to ramp up. It's the circle of life in the NFL. And we need to rewire our brains because of how much Tom Brady's Bill Belichick's Patriots ruined our perception of that being a reality that exists across the league everywhere else. It does. I mean, even the Broncos this year sitting at 10-2 in a position to KO the Chiefs, they are the Broncos are a head-to-head win against the Chiefs away from clinching the West too. Take what the Chiefs have been and multiply it by 2. And that's what the Patriots were in the East. It's such an extreme example. Dolphins ramp up, they phase back down. Patriots are now ramping up. They're hitting a peak. I don't expect them to be a 2-decade dynasty, and neither should you. They're going to be good. They are good now. One thing that's not good is the Dolphins released 2 players. I was told they don't release players, but they did indeed release 2 players. Keon Smith and Hayden Rucci were released over the weekend to make room for the return of Darren Waller and Austin Jackson. Rucci claimed off waivers by the Detroit Lions. So young second-year tight end, really likable inline skill set as a blocker, tough. I wish him the absolute best in Detroit. I wish we'd have kept him. I can name you 4 other guys. I wrote the article for A to Z on the 5 guys on the roster bubble that should have been in consideration to make room for Darren Waller and Austin Jackson. And I did not have Hayden Rucci on that list because I would have liked to have kept. And unfortunately didn't work out that way. So we'll see if they end up doing anything with Keon Smith, potentially putting him on the practice squad. But Rucci to Detroit, where I expect he will fit like a glove, as Jim Carrey once said. Very stylistically good fit for them. We'll see. And if we get a chance to get him back at some point along the way, I would love to have a chance to put him back into the tight end room as a young developmental piece to see what could potentially come along the way, because he did some good things as an inline blocker when the Dolphins needed him to be on the active roster. So bummed out that Rucci is on the outs. He's now in Detroit. But I understand from the sense that if we're going to add Andre Carter and we're going to add AJ Green to the defense, and maybe the numbers game dictates we want them on the 53, but they also just got here and we want to give them a chance to see what they have. Okay. And if Greg Dulcich, in your minds, mitigates the need for Rucci, okay. But I hope you're right. Right? I would hate for Rucci to go on to be a blue-collar, high work ethic player who carves out a niche for himself in Detroit, because I think he could have done that in Miami. But that's neither here nor there. That's going to do it for us today on the show. Kyle Krabs, you can keep it locked in right here with us on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. We appreciate you for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day, and I'll be back to talk to you all again tomorrow. Go Fins.